You're watching Women of Strength TV with a purpose-driven woman who has a yearning deep in her soul to serve the world. Presented to you by Ange Wilcock, creator of Evolutionary Model of Well-Being, Mindfulness-Based Storytelling, and the Raw Woman Project, a businesswoman on a mission for every human on the earth to feel enough.
So welcome to Women of Strength, the place where authentic women come to be themselves, because we know that all of us women who go on the journey of being authentic know that the only place that we feel safe and secure is with who we are. And I've got an amazing guest speaker with me today, Michelle, and we've just been having a great conversation off air around, you know, how so important it is to be us. And when we're running a home and running a family, all of those things, it's not that they get in the way, but they're just part of who we are, everything that we have to manage. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Michelle before I hand her over. And all of you that are following me and watching this, you know that my memory retention is really poor. So I always read because I want to get the introduction to my guests right. So that's one thing that I'm a little bit pedantic about. And so welcome to Michelle Grewal. She is a marketing coach, a teacher, and a certified project manager who helps coaches and consultants create and implement a strategy to attract their ideal client. A former technology executive, Michelle enjoys teaching courses and workshops around online business tools in a way that is fun and easy to understand. A lifelong entrepreneur at heart, Michelle makes the decision to apply a vast experience and expertise to helping women entrepreneurs implement systems and manage projects in a way that maximizes their time, money, and energy. And Michelle is the founder and editor of Spark and Gloss. I love that name. A lifestyle blog which is launching in 2017, and it's featuring a creative collection of the products and services created by female entrepreneurs across all industries and the inspirational stories that spark them into life. So welcome, Michelle. Yeah, wonderful. I was just saying to Michelle before, when I knew a little bit more about her and was finding out who she is and what she does, I was thinking, Michelle is probably someone that I need to on board with me. So, Michelle, welcome. Now, this is all about being a woman of strength and standing in our power of being a woman. So, when did your journey, either entrepreneurial journey or your journey of strength, start?
And so, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I am truly honored, to be here and to be part of this amazing, collection, or not a collection, but a group of women that are working with you. So, thank you first and foremost. So, it's an interesting question. I think my journey of strength, I believe first was shaped when I was very young, and I saw my mom, my parents are still together, which is great, but my mom was always, so hardworking. She also worked outside of the house. Her job, she works as a radiology tech, and so she was able to have time where she could be home with me and also be working, so that was great. And I think, she would always work, and then she would always have almost like a side job, and so seeing her, her always going after what she wanted and providing for our family, I think that was my first sort of memory of that strength of being a woman and having a role model to look up to. And then, just throughout, my childhood and then feeling that kind of entrepreneurial pull and just, being so young, I think I was 12 and I started a babysitting club because I read the book, The Babysitter's Club. I don't know. It was that I love the idea that you can just, you're so carefree when you're young, right? You don't second guess, what if I fail? What if no one likes me? So, really kind of taking that journey along and then really just sort of persevering through different trials and tribulations, adversity as a youngster. I grew up with a learning disability. And so I think being able to kind of overcome that, I mean, that was a really big piece of strength, having to, work through family, some tough family things. And so it really just, I would say that strength came from confidence in myself and just a belief that whatever it was, that I could see it to the other side. And so I think that's really where that strength comes from. And it's funny because sometimes I feel like if you look back at what you went through, you're like, oh my gosh, like if I had known I was going to have to go through that, like I'd be kind of scared. But when you're in the moment, you're like, okay, baby step, baby step, baby step, baby step. So
yeah,
that was a long day.
yeah, and that's the key, isn't it? It's baby steps. Because and I want to just pick up what you said about, when you were 12, you didn't, you started your babysitting and you didn't worry about what people thought of you or formed those sort of belief systems. So do you remember at what point you started worrying about what people think of you? Because I think when we shift into that space, that's when our life starts to change and take on a different path. So do you recall, was there a defining moment when you look back and go, wow, I didn't do that because I was so fearful of what someone would think of me?
And it's funny thinking back. So I went to all through middle school. I don't think I ever questioned, I was always just very free, just like, let me try this, let me try that, let me try programming, let me try learning this computer, that just came out, like the Gateway. Like my first computer was like, the Gateway. I don't know if they have that, but in the US they have like the Gateway computer, which is like a cow box, and it was like the super, like my calculator has more power than did. And so like I just was learning. I was just that curious mind. I think it was when it wasn't in high school, because high school, like I went to a vocational school, which here in the US means like it was just, I got a technical education plus my high school. So instead of like taking a language, I learned about web design. So I've been designing websites since I was like 15. And so it wasn't at that point, but when I look at like college, I think when I went to school for electrical engineering. And so I'm just sort of like this spunky, outgoing, love to talk, could talk your ear off entrepreneur. And then I go into, I don't know why, I'm not sure why I chose electrical engineering. I think because I like cell phones and it sounded kind of hard. Like I decided that. But when I got to engineering school, I realized I was like a lot different than everyone. And I was just this sort of like more bubbly personality. And yet I liked math. And so, but I could feel the pull. I could feel that pull of like, if I don't tone down who I am, then I'm not going to fit in. And I think it was that point where like, I'm deeply grateful for my engineering education, but I felt the pull immediately. And it's not that I didn't succeed. Like I got a lot of internships, but it was especially even in the internships, like being myself sometimes, like more on the, like I'm a cheerleader. Like I like to say, like I'm like, and I actually remember there was one moment where I had interviewed for like my first internship in college, and it was a group interview, and I was like, bubbling and whatever, and upbeat, because all the other engineers are like looking at their shoes, and I'm like the only one that isn't. And so, and the HR girl says, wow, you should be a cheerleader. Like not in the, you should go get pom-poms, but like I was really upbeat, and I'm like, lady, I just interviewed for like a technical position. Like you're calling me a cheerleader? Like I don't get it. So I remember that moment very clearly, and I could always have felt the pull between who I think I should be as someone who has the background that I do and who I truly am inside. And I don't think your education or your title defines you, right? Like the same way if you had a math background, you now have this like transformational practice. It's just a piece of you, but for like the last 15 years, it's always been this like dichotomy. And it kind of pulls. So, but that was like the moment. It was when I got to college where I felt that kind of, wow. I was caring about what people thought, and I had to tone myself down.
Yeah. And so is it true that the perception around, being in that engineering world, it's very much a male dominated world, or? Yeah. So did that have a lot of influence too, the fact that you were in this profession where it was predominantly male?
So, and you know, what I will say is that I've always had so many supportive people around me. So I've always been really lucky to have amazing mentors and work for great companies and great opportunities where I never felt that, oh, because I was a woman, you know, that I couldn't get there. I mean, there's been being lucky that, like, when I entered the engineering workforce, there was so much progression at that point. I mean, the women who came before, you know, it's interesting. I worked for a global defense company, and the woman was the CEO was a woman, and she had graduated back in like 1960 from an engineering school, and like to think that she had to live her entire career, you know, and she's a tough cookie, but to think you have to live your entire career through a very big period where women were not in sciences and engineering. And it's so uplifting to see that so many more women are in there, and they're changing. I don't think it was so much the external pressure of people saying, oh, you're a girl, why are you in engineering? Because there were plenty of other women. It was more like I felt that I had this more of like life coach, cheerleader, pep talk, you know, future Oprah, right? Someday inside of me. And that component of who I am is not within, or I have not seen it as much in my peers. And so I think that was the pull for me. It's right. I feel like I was very accepted as a female, but because I had that like extra component of I could be happy as an engineer and as a life coach, or and as a marketing coach, or as a, you know, a speaker one day, and you know, talk show host, like whatever the case, like in my dreams. But it's that type of thing. And so it was my own pressure to like dull that part down that I think I felt
And that reminds me, it's great because I love having these conversations with women, because we've all got a story, and sometimes we forget some important components in our story. And that just reminds me, when you're talking then, like when I went back to college to get an education, a different education, when I became a solo mum, and I went back and did a computer, you know, science degree. And I was the eldest. I was only 26, something like that. I was the eldest in my class. Like everyone else in the class was like 18 years old. There was 4 girls, and they were girls, and I was I was the only woman.
Young woman. No, you were young. You're
well, yeah. But what I felt so intimidated by being in that group, because 1, I was the eldest, 2, I was a woman, and 3, I'd gone into doing that education, going down that path, because it was a way to earn an income to support my family. And so my motivation was to support my family. But the great learning for me over those 2 years before I then went on and did a higher degree was that the young people looked up to me, and I became the best performing student in that course, that they actually had to create an award because I got distinctions all the way through. And so it wasn't the content that I felt intimidated by, it was my age. It was very much about, oh my goodness. And then as soon as I realized that these people were looking up to me, they were looking for inspiration, they felt inspired by me. You know, a solo mum going into education, they had just left school. I was like, wow. And like you, I then became the coach. And so whenever I needed help or support with assignments or anything, I would ask. And whenever they needed help or support with life, they would ask me. And that was such a defining moment for me. And I'd forgotten about that. So thank you so much for reminding me, because we do. There are so many sort of signposts, I think, in our life, isn't there, that push us to where we are today. Now, we were talking off air about, you know, you being a mum and coming from that corporate world into entrepreneurship, you know, and like you said, you started that at 12. Now, I know that there are a lot of women out there really do struggle in the job that they're in right now, because they have a purpose, a yearning deep in their soul, in their heart, to do something bigger and greater than what they're already doing. So Can you sort of talk us through a bit about how you made that decision to move from that world into the entrepreneurial world, into that space of being you?
Absolutely. And what I will just say, I just want to touch on our last segment of conversation. I remember working, you know, again, being kind of that 18-year-old. And when I first did get to college, and there was a gentleman, he was like probably in his 20s, he might have even been in his 30s. And he had gone back to get his engineering education, and he was the #1 student. And I have, so now being on the side of being a parent and having studied and trying to have my own business and also going to work during the day, I can't tell you the amount of respect and like even deeper respect that I have for people that are continuing their education with a family, with other responsibilities. It is, I mean, it's indescribable. I mean, I remember babysitting for like these 3 boys for a week, and I also had to like go to work and do school, and I was exhausted. I'm like, I can't do my homework until theirs is done, right? Like I can't go to bed. And yeah, now I kind of like lived it as a parent. But to your point, I remember like how much I looked up to him, and he was the best student. He was so conscientious. He had his homework done before everyone. His name is Mike, and I absolutely adore him. Just such a huge role model. So I absolutely, I appreciate knowing that. I love that, like snaps to you, because like, and I can't, that's amazing. It's not a thing. So yeah. So to go back to answer that question, I think it's being a mom and sort of like just trying to figure out, how did I make the leap? A couple times. So I feel like it's just been coming for a long time. So I've been in the corporate world for about 10 years. And so I've been doing consulting, and I've always kind of had this tug, and I've tried different business things. At one point I had like a cupcake business. Like I always, I just trying different things. Like, so I like had a cupcake shop where I actually like would make cupcakes, you know, and I ended up doing like some weddings. I like Tommy Bahama and a bunch of other brands like here in Boston, did cupcakes for them and for their events. Like, don't even know where that came from, but I just decided I wanted to learn cake baking one day. So while being an engineer, I joined a direct sales company, right? Like selling jewelry on the weekends, right? Like I just tried all these things sort of along that side. And as much as I would have loved to have left my job, it was always something I wanted to do, but I was scared to think, oh my gosh, how am I going to make, you know, ends meet? How am I going to support my family? When I recently, right, sort of the kicker to this, me really going full time, as you know, in the US, there's a lot going on in healthcare. There's a lot of changes. And so I was working for a healthcare organization, and I was laid off. I had just started the job a few months, and there's just a lot going on with Medicare and Medicaid, and the hospital had a layoff. And so being such a, you know, new person, it was like you're sort of in that batch. And it was crazy because like I remember I wasn't worried at all. Like I oddly was like, okay, cool. And I'm like, thanks universe, because it's something that for so long, I feel like I believe very much in the universe and Abraham Hicks and the law of attraction, and you know, in the practical sense, but very much like, you know, in that, Denise Duffield Thomas is an Australian, I follow her. But it was like the kick that I needed to be like, okay, here's the game plan. And like, thank God that I had been working as a consultant, and I already had business. I had clients that I could continue to work with when I was able to like start my journey full time, but I was sort of kicked out the door, right? I was sort of like, you know, kicked out of the nest. And so for me, it wasn't so much like, okay, I'm going to hand my notice in, because I think eventually it would have gotten to me. It was extremely stressful. It was a really difficult time, like leading up to it. And I'm glad that it kind of happened in a sort of an odd way. I don't think it would have been hard for me to like actually kick that, because it was like multiple 6-figure like job. It was very lucrative. But I know in my heart, this is what I was meant to do. And so for anyone that is looking for that inspiration, you have to really look within yourself. I think unless the universe kicks you out the door, I'm not saying to try and manifest like getting laid off or being, I think you guys say being made redundant, might be the term. And so I would just say, have a game plan. Like if you have that in your heart right now, if you're still in a 9-to-5 job, that's totally okay. Like don't get stressed out, but start to have a game plan and really look at like, is this what you want to do? Get your systems in place, get your ducks in a row, your poop in a group, whatever you want to call it, get that lined up right now and just look at what that would look like, right? If you got laid off tomorrow, what would that look like? But have no fear, right? Like whatever tomorrow brings, don't have fear about it. You need to trust yourself, and just know that the fear is going to be there, right? But you need to know there's tools, there's ways to cope with it, right? Like people feel fear every day. Like I felt fearful earlier today, right? Like I totally recognize it, but I'm like, oh, that's fear. Let me nip that thing in the bud. So yeah.
And that's cool because when I decided to go on my journey full time, I've been doing private practice sort of part time, and I knew that I wanted to do it full time, and so the roles that I took on to fulfill that other part time work, they were never roles that were fulfilling. There was always so many challenges, and I do believe in the law of attraction, and I know that we get so many opportunities presented to us and we ignore them. And so what the universe does is it just keeps making the challenges bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you go, I'm not coping with this, whatever it is. And I remember one morning there was some, in my workplace, there was just some unethical stuff happening and it just didn't align with my values. It was really, really difficult. And I remember over breakfast one morning saying to my husband, I'm really struggling with this. I've gone down the formal process of what you need to do. And he just said, well, finish, hand in your notice. And it was like I was given permission. I didn't need it. I didn't need permission from my husband or anyone, but it was like the universe had given me permission because someone who loved me dearly is seeing that what I was doing, I was struggling, and I get a sense of he sort of knew I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to finish this job to step into this full time, and he just said, hand in your notice, and I didn't give a second thought. I went straight into the workplace that day and said, I'm finishing, and I haven't looked back since. But when I do look back and reflect on it, there were so many opportunities that presented themselves to me and I ignored it because we're not always ready. Because like you said, fear comes up and you don't always recognize it. But the more learning and growing we do, and I always say to my clients would go, how do you get to where you are today? When I said to them, I'm doing this TV show, I'm doing a podcast, I'm writing a book, and they go, whoa, you scare me. How can you do all this? And I was like, because I love what I do, and like you, and I recognize fear when it comes up now, but I hadn't always recognized it. And that was something that you said. So, you felt a little bit fearful earlier on today. So,
today.
So how do you recognize fear when it comes up, and how do you deal with it?
Really good question. It's funny. Fear has held me back for so long. Like,
I think it's a big story for most of us, isn't it?
Oh, so long. It's like I had 3 little kids 3 years in a row, and I always was like, okay, this maternity leave, I'm just going hard into my business. Like I always had clients, like I started as a VA because I didn't know what else to call myself. And like, I was like, okay, I have these little clients and I'm like, I'm just going to launch this forward facing business huge. But then I'd jump back into work and like sort of lose it. And, so yeah, I mean, fear held me back for a really, really long time. And I always felt like whenever I got into a new job, I'm like, I'm not going to lose myself. I'm not going to push this aside. And then inevitably with the universe, of course, if you say you're not going to do something, you just get sucked into your job, right? Like, I mean, I've loved all the work that I've done, but I couldn't grow it. So it grew out of I couldn't grow my business. So it grew bigger than my job because I was only like having a few clients at a time, right? So kind of keeping it going, but not enough to like overpower the work that I have. the job I had. So in terms of fear, I let it hold me back for a very long time, right? I always sort of stayed in the background of people's businesses, never came out as like, I'm Michelle Grewal, I'm the forward-facing person in my business, and I'm stepping out now as a marketing coach and a speaker and an author, right? Like never came out of the box, I guess, or came out of the closet. And I tell you, like, I had written a post on my page, my Facebook page, like, sometime back right after I went full time. And it was like, I was like shaking because I'm like, oh my God, I'm admitting to all these people, like, this is what I'm doing now. And it was crazy. So in terms of the fear, what I've recently been doing is like, I literally write that down. I remember, I'm trying to think today, what made me fearful? Like, I think it was like my son was, we had gotten taken pictures earlier today at the photographer's. I was feeling really good because some of them are new brand pictures and some of them are his first birthday pictures. And I was trying to get a shot, right? He was in the room and I was trying to get a photo shot and he started crying. And I just felt so frustrated because I'm like, come on, like, I'm just trying to get like a new photo for my website, right? Like, God. And I'm thinking all these thoughts flooded into my mind. I'm like, I'm never going to, like, it's the stupid things that we tell ourselves, but now I can like recognize the script was like, you're never going to, how can you be successful with kids? How can you do this? And it was just that, like, hold on a second. Like, it was just that script of like, you're never going to do this. And I was like, hold on, right? Like, we can't have this. And so often I'll like write down, if I don't know the script, if I start feeling anxious about something, I'll like get my notebook out and I'll start to write down, like, why do I feel anxious about this? And oftentimes it's like, someone looks like they're further ahead than I am, or I feel like I'm never going to get there. And like, I have deep confidence in myself and in my process. Like, I am my biggest fan, but you still feel fear. And so what I do now is I just write it down, like literally it'd be like, if I hear someone on a podcast and it's like doing something I love, or I'm like, oh, I need to be doing that too, or I need to be doing that project. I'm like, hold on, write it down. And I do EFT. I'm a huge EFT person. I learned that from Denise Duffield Thomas. She does luckybitch.com. She's Get Rich. Her book changed my life. Like, I've read it like 5 times. I'm in her mastermind. Like, learning practical law of attraction and like learning EFT has been life-changing for me, because now I have a tangible way to like release that fear, right? And it's like a tool, and I recommend it to everyone. It feels really woo-woo, but I'm like, it works. Like tapping on your hand, like you can so, and then I go back to so I tap, if there's something like, or someone that comes up, I do forgiveness, like, the Denise talks about like Ho'oponopono. I'm sure like there's, a lot of those techniques. And then the other one is going back to like, what's my ultimate plan? Like going back to who I serve, right? What is my ultimate intention? My intention is every day to help a woman make sure she's using her time, her money, and her energy and her resources effectively. That's what I'm doing. I go back to my strategy, like, what is it I'm trying to accomplish now? Is it something, do I have like some new project idea and I'm feeling anxious about it? Like, stick it in my brain dump board and go back to like, what am I working on now? If I want to do that extra thing, cool. Like, where am I going to get the extra time, or hire another person to do it if I'm not going to do it? So like, just trying to take like, calm the fear down, right? Like chill it out, and then realize like, okay, how can I actually get this accomplished if I want to? Like, stay up a couple extra hours, hire someone to do it for me. It's like, let's bring it down to 0, and then like logically try and figure it out. So that's how I sort of deal with the fear.
That's brilliant. That's so good, because I think also you excuse me, you touched on a really good point around, there is so much out there, and when we want to give back to people all the time, which is my mission, my mission is for every person on this planet to feel enough. And when we want to give back, it's in our genes, basically. It just flows through my blood. When you hear of something new and effective, go, oh, I want to use that, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, and then you do get stuck. You do get stuck. And so I've got, like you, different techniques that I use too. And I always say to people, there's so much out there that there's not one size fits all. There's many different things, and depending on the level of fear will depend on the technique, that you use too. Because one of the ones that I use is very much about putting both hands on your heart and asking what the fear is about, because our heart is keeping us alive, and it doesn't judge us in any way, shape or form. And when we just ask those questions and we feel calmness and breathe into it, you can do that anywhere, and no one looks at you. And because some of I do tapping too, and some people go, I couldn't do that, I couldn't be in a meeting going like this and like this. And I'm like, so it's simple. Put your hands on your heart. No one will question you for doing that. And just put your hands on your heart and just breathe into whatever the fear is, and just ask your heart to release it. Because when we can do that with our eyes open and anywhere, and it just calms us. It just calms our whole system. So I love that you use different techniques too, because I think it's so important to know that there is so much out there for us. So now, if our wonderful women that are watching this and listening to this would like to get in touch with you and know more about what you do, guide us through, one, where can they find you? And probably more importantly, give us a little overview. I mean, I did a bit in the bio at the beginning in the introduction, but give us a little overview about what you do and how you can help women who are either in business right now or are about, thinking about moving from corporate into working for themselves.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the technique. And again, I feel like I was like, oh, when I was learning more about you, you've studied with Marissa Peer, who I just happened to have watched on YouTube, her keynote about I Am Enough. Yeah. I wrote lipstick on my mirror and in my shower, and my husband looks at it and I'm like, what? Like, I am enough, I made it on my phone. Like, you can't see my phone right now, but the screen is like, I am enough. So I was just like, whoa, like, this is like, I just learned about Marissa Peer, and like, yeah, having trained with her, I'm like, that's amazing. So yeah.
And that is just that I am enough, because I also study neuroscience. I'm fascinated by neuroscience, and just continually telling ourselves, I am enough, I am enough, I am enough. We create new neural pathways. Another if you love Marissa's work as much as I do, something else that you may love too, and this is for anyone who's going into a situation that they're fearful of. So I'll give an example. I'm fearful, or I was fearful of going up ladders, and at our beach house, I had to get up a ladder to finish off some painting high up on the ceiling. And I thought, right, what technique can I use to overcome this fear? And so one of the techniques that Marissa uses and I use with my clients is, you look at it and you look at what you need to do, and you go, I want this, I love this, I choose this. And I was just walking up the ladder going, I want this, I love this, I choose this. I just kept saying it over and over again in my mind. I got to the top of the ladder, started painting, and then I went, oh, I'm not scared. And I was just, and every time, of course, when I go, I'm not scared, the fear comes back, and it's, I want this, I love this, I choose this. I got no fear of walking up a ladder, and that was all I did. In fact, it was only a couple of weekends ago, we had some really bad storms in New Zealand, and I had to get up on the roof of our house. We've got a roof ladder that goes up on the apex of the roof, and I just got up there because I had to get up and move a piece of tree, and no problem, didn't even give it a thought, climbed out a top window onto the ladder. It's highly effective for anything, because remember, whatever we tell ourselves is what we become. So I love walking ladders. I think it's amazing.
I want this. I love this. Choose this. Yeah.
I love this. I choose this. I want this. It's simple. My clients, so what I use it's a great technique to use with clients who are like, oh, it can't be that effective. And I always say to them, use it for something that you don't want in your life anymore. Something very simple. So a lot of people go, I don't want sugar in my tea or coffee anymore. And I go, okay, just use it for that. Don't have sugar and, and go, I want this, I love this, I choose this. I said, I guarantee you within a couple of days, you won't even want sugar. You will love the taste. And they do. They come back and they go, well, that's amazing. And I go, yeah, and you can use it in anything in your life.
That is unbelievable. Like, I love that. I love that. I feel like we could have I had another word.
We have a techniques conversation.
Yeah. People. The word, I remember a few days before I was feeling really stressed out before the layoff, and I was just like, I don't know how I can keep doing this. And my friend Ivy, she's a life coach, and she said, well, are you capable of it? And I was like, because I couldn't bring myself to Abraham Hicks be like, I'm amazing, you know, because I was like such on a different emotional scale, and I was so stressed out. And she's like, but are you capable of this? And I was like, of course I'm capable of it, you know, and it changed how, you know, I'm like, I know I'm capable of doing it. It's just like, can I get past the fear? And it was capable that, like, you know, it was that capable, three syllables that like changed it. I want this, I choose this.
Yeah. Just switch, which is I've just had another idea come into my mind. I think techniques, because there are so many, and every woman that I've interviewed uses different techniques. So maybe what I need to do is I need to get a big forum of us all together, and it is, I don't know, we'll call it Woman of Strength technique, we'll call it something, because I think it would be amazing. Because it depends on where we are in our journey, because some people see some techniques as woo-woo, they're not ready to go to that space yet. And others, especially if they don't get the law of attraction and all of that, but when they can start doing simple things for themselves and see that it's highly effective, they start questioning their own belief system then. So,
right.
Yeah, I think maybe that's what
like a round, like you do like an ebook or like a whole like mini masterclass of like, here's my process that I do. And it's, I mean, because it's kind of pick and choose. I read the Abraham Hicks books. It's like Ask and It Is Given. And in the back, there are these 22 processes that Abraham or Esther write out. And it's like, use this when, right? Use this when your energy level is in between here, and do this process. Like, it's like a grab bag, right? Of processes, and it's a tool. That would be, that's a cool book bonus, or like for your, right? That's a,
And it's like, I don't know if you've read Jack Canfield's Success Principles. There's some amazing stuff in there.
I haven't, I mean, I've read Jack Canfield, but I haven't read that. Was that that specific? Like, I've only read some of his work. I haven't read all of it. He's so just like
the Success Principles. And
yes. Okay.
Principles. Amazing. And he's a great, I mean, I get all my books on Audible. I listen. I listen rather than, you know, I just love it. It's just, and it's the thing is, when you're listening to a book, it's reprogramming your brain, because what I love about his book, the Success Principles, is there's 60 odd principles that he uses.
Really?
Common thread that runs through all of them. So your brain is just in this wonderful high state all of the time, because you're like, oh, I know where I can use that. Oh, I know what I can do that. Oh, and you're just like, whoa. So. But anyway, we're going off track. Well, we're not actually.
Sorry. It's like, it's not like, because there's so much good stuff in there. I know. So I digress. But anyway, so to learn more about me, so it's sort of odd when I came into this, because like when I was talking to a friend, she's a copywriter, and we were working sort of on my, you know, what I do. I said, I would say I like to talk a lot, but I'm finding my voice. And so, because it's not clear cut, right? It's partly clear cut. When I first started sort of as a coach or marketing consultant, I called myself a VA, because I didn't know literally what else to call myself, because I knew how to do Infusionsoft and all these mail programs. I knew how to connect things together, like websites. But what I found was that I wasn't just like executing the task. I was like, they're like, oh, I want this thing, or I want Infusionsoft. And I'm like, but do you really need that right now? Like, you know what I mean? Or just having the conversation about what they wanted to accomplish. And so when we were working on it, she's like, oh, you're a strategy coach. And I'm like, that is so generic. That's so like pie in the sky. What I really love to do, and people always think, oh, systems, like no one wakes up thinking they need a strategy coach or a project manager or someone to implement systems for them. They wake up thinking, what am I going to get done today? I have these 5 projects. Which one is going to make the biggest difference in my business? people maybe aren't finding my signature offering, right? Like you're not converting enough people, or I'm not getting as much, you're not making the connection between your ideal client and your signature offering. And so what I like to do is really look at, like, people can come to me in like sort of, different stages, but oftentimes, my client is generally in a place where, she has these signature offerings. She'll have a lot of different lead magnets, and she's been, she's on certain social media platforms. She's running in these certain circles, but her goal, she wants to grow or build or see, kind of not even just scale, I would say, but like really just make the most of what she's doing, or break into get in front of more of her ideal customer, but not sure kind of how to implement that. And so what I like to do is just take a look back, and I call it the world of your business. And so it's just about me kind of looking at, okay, where are you? If you think of like the world of your business, and people can come into your world so many ways, right? Word of mouth, landing on your website, landing on a blog post, coming in through social media. Are you giving people the experience? Are you drawing people into your business, to your core offering, right? Like, do you have those systems in place? Do you have content for them to consume that leads them on that little breadcrumb trail back to the solution that you have? And it's okay if they're not meant to go to that one solution. Like your coaching program, you have probably multiple layers, you have multiple, opt-in gifts and ways that people can find you, blog content. But if you're guest posting on all these websites where your ideal client is not, you're going to have a hard time finding her and leading her on that path, right? So not PR, but it's more just like your strategy. Like are you fishing in the right pond, right? Like you got the bait, you know what you're going to do with the fish when you get them, but are you fishing in the right pond? And not even, so it sounds like sort of generic, but it's really about making sure that you have this sort of channel set up. I hate the word funnel. You're not a hamster. You're not like, you're not going to a funnel. Like I hate that word. Yeah. But it's, yeah. Like if I referred, my friend, I said, listen, you have to go see her website. If they go to your website, I trust that they have a way to like lead themselves to you and your core offering, right? Yeah. It's making sure like, do you have that in place, or are you fishing in the right spot? So it's strategy. It's looking at like, what are you doing right now? What are your goals, right? And okay, so this is what you're deploying right now. You're on Instagram and Pinterest, but you're trying to reach like a different audience, and you don't have this kind of content. So it's sort of working backwards to say, hey, strategically, let's see what you're doing. Do you have content, here and here? And then great, now we want to change it. What project is the higher priority? So it's more of that strategy component, but it sounds very, it's funny when you say strategy, but it's what it is. It's using your research.
It's absolutely necessary, isn't it? Because if you go to my website, you'll see that I haven't got my lead magnet and funnel because I'm reviewing at the moment. I'm in that process of reviewing where I'm taking my client on that journey. And I think it's so important to know that
your website is beautiful, and it describes who you are, and you feel who you are when you go to, like, I felt who you are. I got your vibe like immediately when I got your website. And so when I met you, I'm like, oh, like it all kind of came together. So it's, but yeah.
That's great feedback, because you never know. Like for me, it's very much, my website is me. I believe it's truly me, but it's like, does it communicate that? So that's, thank you. That's great feedback for me. So it sounds what you do is amazing. So how can people that are in business and need that, because it is a strategy, it is, if we're going to be successful in business, we absolutely need what you do. So how can we get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. So you can email me. So my website is Michelle Grewal, Michelle, Grewal. So it's Grewal. Sometimes people say Grewal. It's like Grewal, like a wall that's gray. So you can just send an email to Michelle at michellegrewal.com. You can link it here in the show notes. And so you can come over, check out my website, and just send me a note. Like I always want to say, if you need the kind of like, if I can help you with something, right? It's usually pretty like, we'll click right away. Not that we will click, but I'll be able to kind of identify and be like, hey, is this something like, I definitely think I can help you with this. One thing I've learned is that there's a difference between what I can do and what I want to do, right? So like, there's a very big difference between, okay, I can design a website from scratch, but I don't like to design from scratch. I like to do updates, right? Like I can do the technical stuff and I can coach you through these things, but there's certain things like that I want, like, not that I won't do, but I'm not the best at it. So like, if you want a website totally from scratch, like a custom design, I know where I can refer you to and like people that I trust, right? If you're having a lot of fear, there's certain fears that come up with putting yourself out there, right? But if there's something that's even more than maybe, if there's reasons that you're having a hard time with, like there's people that I can refer them to and just say, hey, like let's partner with this person. They're really great at helping people move through this, and that's like, I would never want to bring someone into my kind of client circle if I'm not the best fit for them, right? But I'd be happy to help them find exactly what they need so that they can go on and, like bring themselves into the world. I think that is my goal. It's like
that's what I love about us purpose-driven women, because competition doesn't even exist in our world. It's very much about collaboration, isn't it? We offer so much and we bring in so many other women to support our purpose too. I do that through my rejection-proof business school, and what I do is I teach women how to get online to serve their purpose, fulfill their mission in a simple, effective way. But what I do is I collaborate with others to come on and be guest speakers, because they talk about their genius, because I'm not a genius in everything. My goal is for everybody to feel enough, and it's to get themselves out there. And I also know that I have to collaborate with others to enable, my mission to be fulfilled. And the same is for you. So what's the website address that they need to go to again?
Sure. Yeah. So michellegrewal.com, MichelleGrewal.com. So that is my website. And then Spark and Gloss, which I am launching later this year. That's sort of like this not passion project, but it's another platform that I've wanted to launch for a long time. And it's really to highlight women who are not only I know so many coaches and consultants, which is amazing, highlighting their journeys, but there's a lot of women in different types of like photographers, women in direct sales and party plan is like so near and dear to my heart, because I never knew it was an option. So women who want to be entrepreneurs, start a business like very quickly with low capital and be able to see results immediately, right? And so it was an industry that I've been involved with since like 2010. So I mean, I've been in with it for a long time. And I just think I never thought I would join a company like that. I'm not with one now, but I ended up like in my career at one point working in a home office, right? So of a Tupperware or Mary Kay, or I'm trying to think of like the different companies you have there. But I want to highlight other types of entrepreneurs and different types of business women to kind of show like, here's an insight into what it's like to be a photographer and her journey and like that inspiration, right? That's the spark, right? It's that spark, it's that inspiration. And then the gloss is like, being your best self, right? Like lip gloss or glossy being shiny. So it was just a way to share resources and then highlight, women of all different types of entrepreneurial backgrounds. So that's sparkandgloss.com, but it's not up yet. I'm just trying to build in the interviews and build in the content before I sort of release it to the world. So
I love it. I love it. Sparkandgloss.com. So thank you so much, Michelle. It's been such a pleasure. I love these conversations because I start learning more about myself too, learn more about you, reflect on some of my defining moments and experience some of yours. So thank you so much. It's been a wonderful experience for me.
This has been an amazing experience. And I was just thinking like, I never had stopped to think about where that dichotomy was. Like where did that even come from? Like that, like all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, like where, and I'm like, wow, like I did not see that, like looking back, it's so funny how you can pinpoint those moments where normally I'd maybe have a hard time. That was amazing. So thank you so much. This is incredible, and I appreciate you and appreciate the women listening, and hopefully I could be of service. So
thank you. So ladies, if you're listening or watching this, you can find Michelle at michellegrewall.com and watch out for Spark and Gloss. So we look forward to seeing and hearing all of you next time.
Remain real, authentic, and whole. Be yourself and continue to follow your dreams. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time on Woman of Strength TV.